Welcome back to the Sports Parenting Playbook podcast. Kirk, Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Great Christmas. And we are joined also by Dwain Chambers. So, Dwain, Happy
Hi,
New Year
Dwayne.
to you as well.
New Year, fellas. I did say how many mince pies have you lot had?
Yeah, I'll keep that a secret because,
Let's keep that one quiet for now.
coaching kids, we need to teach them healthy eating habits.
Absolutely, good habits.
We went through the mince pies, definitely. Dwain, thank you so much for joining
Pleasure.
on the podcast. I'm going to go through some of your achievements. We've got to do it.
Go
So
for it.
you're a medalist at the World Championships. That's both indoor and outdoor.
Yes, I am.
European Championships, both indoor and outdoor. And also, if I'm not mistaken, you're the youngest ever medalist at the World Championships at 21.
Yep.
And
And
you
I'm
still
the only athlete in history to have run sub 10 seconds in 3 separate decades.
Fantastic. This is what I was going. The most impressive one for me because I've just started track running this last probably 6 months, and you set a world record at M45, 60 meters.
Yeah, I did.
So lots to unpack.
There's lots going on.
Can I ask on that? Is that what's it like running under 10 seconds the first time you do it? 100 meters. Was it? What are you thinking?
Then you're part of an elite group.
Yeah,
That was a big deal back in our day. Like sub 10-second runners now is it's norm, but back in the day,
sure.
It's just norm now. But back in the day, there was only a handful. The Limfers, the Carl Lewises, there was only a handful, and it was a prestigious group.
Yeah.
And when I'd run sub 10 seconds for the first time, I thought, I've made it.
Oh.
But the challenge with that now or then was once you are in that group, you can't drop off. And you're up against some elites who run that day in, day out. And then that's when the challenge starts to unravel because you've got to maintain those standards. And that's probably the hardest thing because you've got that label on your back as being a sub 10-second runner. And you've got to live up to that. And that in itself comes with more losses before you then have the ability to then stay up at that level.
Yeah. And you're joining us from Lee Valley.
Yes.
So we'll get into what you're currently doing. So we know you're doing a lot of work with youngsters to get them into the sport, which is fantastic. I want to go right back to the start because we're all about, talking to parents about how they can get their children into sport without pressure. Now, when I'm looking at all of the stuff about your career, it comes up quite as prominent that your sister was a sprinter as well. So family history in sprinting. Who got you into the sport? How did you come across it?
I was very lucky. As a youngster, I wasn't the most best behaved at school. So I was brought up in a very, very strict household, Jamaican parenting. So it was a lot of physical and mental abuse at the time. So with that, there was very little opportunity for growth and me to get out the house and just do what kids normally do, playing in the streets, doing all the crazy things you did. So when I did have those rare opportunities to get out, I took full advantage and I would kick bins and wreck people's doors, and I was just a wild child. And it wasn't until my primary school teacher, the late Mr. May, said to me, look, you give me head in class, and I remember this with clarity, but boy, can you run. Because you'd see me run up and down the playground just like a wild child, but I would just outpace anybody. And that was just a lot of just built up tension from us not being able to just do it on the weekend as all the other kids would. So I had to let it out in the playground. Mr. Dave May introduced me to a guy called Chris. And within 3 years of that introduction, I went from a kid locked up in his room to the fastest teenager in the planet.
So I'm curious on that is that if you going from, in your words, you're a bit of a wild child, and then you're going into a sport that you almost have to be quite disciplined.
Absolutely.
To be very good, don't you? So how was that transition?
So with Chris taking me under his wing, Chris introduced me to cross country. Chris and I hadn't only been working a few months, and he hadn't realized what my skill was. And with Chris's background being more in long distance, he introduced me to a cross country. And the turning point in my career was when I ran the cross country, I finished dead last, as you can imagine, because I just knew about sprinting off, and I finished dead last. But it was the applause and the cheering that I got from the parents for completing the course that switched this light on in me. Because I found that I was getting rewarded and applauded for just the effort alone, as opposed to being at home where I didn't get any applause or support or anything like that. So that I clung to that and I wanted more of it because I thought, oh, I like this. I'm getting praise for finishing last, but trying. So with that applause I said to Chris, I want to do more of this. And Chris said, no, Dwain, I can't help you with this. You need to go to another guy called Selwyn who's more geared towards sprinting. And then when I got introduced to Selwyn, I had to then go through the process of learning the discipline of doing your warm-up properly, the discipline of turning up on time, the discipline of getting up when training gets hard. So by not being the best at school or not doing so well in the cross country, I learned discipline and more about myself on the track than I did off of it. And it was within that short period of time that I changed and I wanted more of this because I liked it. And by liking it, it then unraveled a part of me that I didn't really know existed.
It's an incredible story. You've got influential people, Chris and Selwyn, that kind of spot something in you and
Absolutely.
encourage you.
Yeah.
You're now coaching youngsters. You've got the Dwain Chambers Performance Academy.
Yes.
And the Chamber for Sports, I think you've
that's the
got
main
set up as well.
company, and the academy that's been running for 9 years now.
Are you spotting these children in your coaching? Because I know it's from ages 9 to 21. Are you spotting these behaviors, characteristics in kids, and how do you approach them? And also, what barriers maybe do you get from the parents that maybe are bringing the kids to these sessions? Because you're the coach, you're the one that is able to give that advice, and we're trying to make sure the parents don't overstep that mark and leave it to the coaches. So you're able to put the arms around the kids now and say, look, this is what you need to do. How are you doing that?
So first of all, with it regards to how they come on board, a lot of it is just through word of mouth and literally some of the online tutorials and videos that I talk about. And essentially, yes, we're encouraging kids to take part in sport and do athletics. And athletics, in my opinion, is probably the best sport because it relies on you. It's all you. Yes, you've got a team of people around you, but you've got to be the one to get up there, get there, do the warm-ups, get up when it gets tough, go outside when it gets cold, do those extra burpees and push-ups when you don't want to. And so with that, then it's a lot of word of mouth. And when I have parents, it's funny because when I first started the academy, I just pretty much come fresh off my suspension. It wasn't too far off that period of time. And the challenge that I faced physically and then mentally for me was, why would parents trust me knowing what I've just gone and done? Regardless of all the apologies and all this stuff that had been going on behind the scenes, why would parents trust me? So I said to a handful of parents, why have you brought your kids here knowing the stigma attached to me? And I was just open and honest with them. And I'm like, well, why not you? Because you've lived life on both sides of the coin. I don't want my kids just to be brought up in a pretty rosy environment. And if anyone can teach them the highs and lows, it's you. So from there, I was sold. I was like, okay, despite what I've gone through, it's put me in a position where I can now, I can spot kids that are having difficulties and may have those thoughts. And I come across these conversations with athletes frequently. Dwain, I'm thinking about this. Should I do it? I'm like, well, you can see what the consequences of your actions would incur. So I get a lot of talks about that. I deal with parents quite closely on their involvement with their children. It's not just about just bringing them here and dumping them here. You've still got a young man and woman that you have to deal with at home. So I teach, we talk, we put on in-house seminars with psychologists who teach parents about how to handle their children pre, during and post-competition. When young females are going through their periods, how young men are handling themselves when they're entered into a new environment in college and they're trying to find themselves when they're going through puberty. So these are things I put in place now that I wish I had when I was growing up as a young athlete. Despite the support from Selwyn and Chris and even Dave May to extreme, there were things that were missing that would have helped me have smarter decisions in my career. So when you have a young kid that's gone from nothing to something, you've still got the emotional side of things to deal with. Because now you've got a young man or a young woman who's skyrocketed, who feels they're on top of the world, and their ability to take on board advice now is going to be challenged. It's going to be challenged because now they're earning more money, which I was at 17. I was earning more money than my parents. I went into the position of listening to anybody. I thought I knew it all, So I put things in place now, early. So the habits, the behavior, the mindset has been introduced at a low stage, an early stage, rather than waiting until they've made it. and then they're not going to listen to anybody. You know, they're going to be influenced by wanting to go out and satisfy their agents, their sponsors, all that limelight that's going to be associated with it. So I put interventions in early so everyone's prepared and they know how to manage A, themselves as parents, and B, the young people know how to manage themselves in the sporting environment or whatever workplace environments they develop onto later on in their career.
I think it's fantastic what you're doing. And I follow you on Instagram and I've seen your drills and all those kind of things. And I've got an 11-year-old son and I copy those with him. And if we were closer to you, I'd be bringing my son to your sessions if you would take him. Yeah. So that's how much I think of what you're doing. It truly is fantastic. And I was overjoyed that you come on here and talk about what you're doing as well. I want to ask though, you mentioned about your parents and you said they were quite strict. And, you know, when you were starting to get a bit of success as a sprinter in athletics, what think?
To be fair, there was a period of time where I was probably competing and they knew very little about it.
Really?
They knew very, very little.
Because they didn't want to know or because you kept it from them or?
One, I kept it from them because I felt that if I told them I was going out and doing this, they would say, you're not going out because you're lying. So they just wouldn't let me out. So I'll just, a lot of the time I just lied just to make sure I can get out of the house. So I can then go to the competition and then compete. And it's only when I probably became 2-time European junior champion that they kind of started to clock on, our son has something here. And it's only when I really made it, when I started to run sub 10 seconds a handful of times, that I was in a position to then pay for them to come and see me run.
Yeah.
That's when the penny dropped for them. But up until that time, I didn't involve them too much. A, they were working. And B, I just thought, this is my gig. I'm not going to involve you. Because unfortunately at the time, my mindset was everything to do with my parents was all bad. It's all physical and mental abuse. I just didn't want anything to do with you.
What did that feel like when they sat up and noticed you when you ran sub 10 seconds?
I can't remember what I was like at that age, but I can only imagine I must have been happy to be able to bring them along.
Yeah.
Money to do it. I had the freedom, the flexibility to say, Mum, I'm paying for you lot to come and watch me run. And that in itself is, for most parts, most young men, I guess most kids in general, want to be able to look after their parents when they get older. That was certainly a driver for me. I just wasn't very vocal with them about it.
Yeah.
The ambition that I want to get my mum and dad to come and see me run. And that was one of the reasons why I got up every day. I want to be accepted. I wanted them to accept me. I wasn't getting their acceptance because they just had a lot of stuff going on for whatever reason. So I don't blame them. There's no point. I just think now I've become a parent myself. I see the challenges. I experienced the challenges of parenting. So that in itself was something that constantly drove me.
So you say, Dwain, you're a parent, and no doubt that with your love of sport, there's going to be an idea that you'd want them to follow in your footsteps in some way, because that's what parents want. One of the things that we talk about quite a lot on this podcast is physical literacy, and that's making sure children are able to be engaged in sports and to have that enjoyment and basically be kids, let them explore everything they want. What's your take on sport for them? Is it to say, right, you're going to do athletics, or do you let them explore? Because a lot of the people we spoke to on the podcast, sports stars, they've tried other sports. So did you try any other sports as a child? And how is that going to be different for your kids?
So the two other sports I tried as a child was football and rugby, and both involved me run outside in shorts. And I said, I'm not doing that.
So that's environmental factors.
Yes,
You don't like the cold. You didn't want to be outside, and you weren't engaged in it.
Yeah, that put me off straight away. When I saw the other kids in shorts and t-shirts in the cold blitz, I said, no way.
So the engagement wasn't there for those sports, yeah?
Wasn't in there. Just wasn't there. And I was I was very introverted. I still am. I disguise that very well. You would have no idea and believe that I am very introverted. But I realized it's an ability that I have. So I deliberately force myself to go in front of camera, talk, just so that side of me gets stronger, feels more confident. Rugby and football were my first two exposures, and I ignored those. And then athletics became the driver. With my kids now, I would always bring them to my academy into the track, just to have sport a part of their life. I didn't want to force them. But ultimately, as a parent who's been successful in athletics, I wanted one of my siblings, one of my offspring to take part in sport. And the coming up broke the straw. The thing that stopped my kids from doing it was the expectation on them from the outside world.
Really?
It went to football matches or, oh, you're going to be fast like your dad. And then it's just completely put them off.
I feel guilty because I was going to ask, are they fast?
They're all fast.
And I shouldn't be asking that because what I should be asking is, what do they love in terms of physical activity? What do they love in terms of sport? But I'm curious as to, they must be really quick.
They are all quick and they will do sport outside of my space. So they won't compete. If they're going to play football, they're not doing it on any level. They just don't want the association with the name and all that and expectation. Right. They're just like, I'm not doing it. Because everywhere I go, people want to race me or they expect me to be quick because of you. I'm just like, so that has broke my heart. But at the same time, I've got to see their perspective because my reasons for doing sport was to get out the house and away from the abuse, whereas they don't have those concerns or those fears. I take them everywhere and anywhere they want to go and explore. And now they're moving towards taking up learning a skill and a trade. They still do sport, but they're more looking in, works in construction, the oldest, he's 20. My middle one's doing an electrician course and my daughter, she's got a knack for engineering.
Wow.
So with that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to support you on that.
Yeah, you must be very proud.
Please exercise to some degree, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. As long as they're healthy and happy, and that's the one, right? Yeah,
that's it.
And this is kind of like what the mission is of mini athletics. It's getting kids introduced to sport from an early age to make sure that they're, being kids. So it's all athletics disguised by play-based learning. And I think that's kind of the key thing, isn't it? As soon as you introduce competition, if that competition is introduced but not introduced in the right way,
yes,
you automatically can see kids going, I'm not interested in that, and away they go.
Yeah.
Maybe have that completely negative impact with their sport because they turn into adults. Well, the story, I don't like running because running was a punishment at school. It was running laps. And I don't like football because it's cold and they made me wear shorts. That type of thing. So we're trying to make it fun for kids.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
I'm assuming same when you've got your kids coming into your academy at 9, you teach them differently to what you would when you're teaching a 21-year-old.
Absolutely. And the driver comes from them if they want to compete. That's funny because I'd done a talk 2 weeks ago at an independent school. And before I led the talk, I asked each one of the students and the parents if they can identify the difference between competing and winning.
Okay.
The difference is, from my perspective, as a youngster, when I got into competition, it was just to compete. I didn't care about the winning. Because I found when I competed more frequently and I was just enjoying it from that perspective, my ability to win became more frequent. Because it's happened as a consequence. As I developed and the influences around me, agents, sponsors, requirements, my social group, focused my attention on winning, then my attitude changed, my personality changed, my aura changed, everything around me changed. And it was no longer about competing just for participating. It became about the win because of the status, the financials, the profile. And then decisions surrounding my attitude towards just winning changed. And then I became very singular, very rigid, small-minded, arrogant. So my philosophy with these youngsters now, let them enjoy it. They come and participate. I'm not concerned about their ability level. As long as we can take them from a mindset of I can't to I can, I'm open to that because I found sport was the best learning process for me. It taught me how to get up. It gave me the opportunity to push myself in my own way. I needed someone to say, look, time's up. Go do what you got to do. And whatever you get out of today, you get out of today. Tomorrow's another day, we move on again. And I use a lot of that and refine it in ways that help some of these youngsters go out there and push themselves to their own ability.
Which talk, sorry, Kirk, I just want to quickly want to ask, that talk that you went to, because it's really important. You asked the question to the parents, and I'm assuming a show of hands. How many of them understood the difference between competing and winning? Just like,
I think it was interesting because when I asked that question again, only one put his hand up, and that may just be a confidence thing. Confidence meaning he actually sat down and thought about it. And competing, in his words or words to those effects was, it gives me the opportunity to just set my own goals and ambitions. And that's what I took from it. He set his own goals and own ambition and his own journey. So he doesn't think about the win. He gets his wins from whatever goals he's set within that competing mindset.
Process over outcome.
Absolutely. The journey he's on, the people he meets, the things he's experienced. I want to get to, even if one goal for turning to competition was just to get there on time, that's a goal achieved. And that should be acknowledged and rewarded. So I do the same for my kids at competitions. We set little goals, and if what do you want to achieve today? And a lot of them say time. I said, that's a rarity, So I try to pull them away as best as I can and focus on manageable goals, getting there on time, keeping a good mindset. If you're wobbling, what can we do to get you back to a good state of mind? One of the athletes has something like, chocolate makes me happy. So I said, when you're having a wobble, think of chocolate. She went and PB'd.
and then add some chocolate.
And then add some chocolate afterwards. But it's shifting their mindset. Because the personalities you see in training, they're fun, they're happy, they're bubbly. And the moment they get close to a competition, everything changes. And understand those changes, because there's a little bit of pressure. Mum and dad may be putting them under pressure. Go out and win. Do your best. Don't let us down. All those trigger words have an influence on how they now view themselves and the expectation put on them. So again, same thing I do with my academy. I'm educating parents on your wording. Whatever you say or do or how you behave affects them, because they pick it up. Them, your children, they pick it up. And they want to go out there and compete for themselves and have fun, but not have the weight of your expectation on them.
When you first went to the track as a kid, it sounds like that's a place where you found joy and happiness, and it was a safe place for you. And then it sounded like that took a turn, because then I was thinking, right at the beginning of when we were talking, you said something about how maintaining a level, because you're as part of an elite club of being an under, sub 10 second 100 meter sprinter. Did that joy and happiness start to dissipate when you start to feel the pressures of being an athlete then?
Yes, those pressures started to kick in from 18 when I broke the world junior record, 17, 18, around then.
Right.
But then, as much as I embraced it, I liked all the attention. That was great. But with it also came a massive responsibility that no 18 or 19-year-old in my shoes was prepared. I couldn't handle that. I didn't have anyone I could go home to and say, Mum, this happened, Dad, this happened. I had to deal with it myself. Now, on one hand, people will say that's dealing with resilience, but there were some questions that were going through my mind that I had no idea how to answer. How do I answer a question when I'm seeing other athletes getting all the fame and glory, which is starting to happen later in my career? I don't know how to answer those questions. Why are they winning? This is when I got further up the ranks. Why are they getting the gold, silver, and bronze? And I'm now finishing 4th and 5th. It's when you're at those low points that you need a support group and maybe the tools to help you navigate those questions. I didn't know how to answer those questions. And as a result of that, I thought it must be my team that's the problem. So I got rid of everyone. And then I jumped on a plane to America. And then before I knew it, I was injecting myself with all sorts of stuff, thinking that was the answer. When really the answer was always my ability, but I just lacked the personality to ask questions. I didn't know how to answer questions. I didn't want to answer questions because I was afraid of A, letting people down, and B, being told, no, you're not doing that, and the rejection, because I'd always been told no as a kid. So all I wanted is acceptance and praise, and I wasn't getting that anymore. So then I just introverted even more. And then as a result of that, I just said, sod it, this is what I'm going to do, and I don't care about anybody else. And then my career went wrong from that point onward.
So what you're saying, I guess, to summarize that, is that what led to the suspension and that time in your career was due to the pressure that was placed on you for your success. And I guess knowing how to cope with that success, because back then you weren't trained or dealt with like you're dealing with your youngsters and how to deal with that? Is that kind of where we're at?
You could say that. Like, I'm not saying it was the pressure was the reason. I knew what I was getting myself into. So I want to make sure that we're clear on that. I knew what I was getting myself into. I just didn't anticipate. I knew it was rule breaking all the way along. I'm not even denying that. I knew it. It was just my insecurities and my failure to look at what I could do better instead of look what everyone else was doing. So I had what's now referred to as FOMO, fear of missing out. I thought that the grass was greener on the other side. I thought they were doing things better than me, but essentially what I had done, no other athlete had ever done in the past. So there was no reason for me to go and do what I did, but yeah, I still went and done it. So when I do my talks in school, why would somebody who had achieved all of this from the age of 14 to then make the decision to go and take performance enhancers, why would somebody do that when they've already achieved all of that stuff prior? Why? And then at the time, no matter who was around me, at the time I just felt they lacked what it took to help me progress. Because in my mind, I was like, I've already become world medalist.
Yeah.
10 seconds old. None of you have done that. There was nobody around me that could, in my mind, advise me. Maybe all I needed was someone to just really be firm with me. I needed a firm hand. I needed someone to pull me down and say, no, you are not doing that. And these are the reasons why.
Can I add to that? I was in a very privileged position to work with a few athletes in various different sports in my previous career as an S&C coach. And one of the things, and I did it for years and I toured and so on. One of the things that I identified with some, especially those that had a lot of success early on when they were really young, is identity and how their identity as a human being, who they were and what they thought they were, was not based on, the traits of being a good person or anything like that. And like normal people would, because they're just plunged into this environment and their identity became intertwined with their achievements.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's a really dangerous place to put young kids, especially with you, when you had absolutely no support at home. And it was, and you were just dived into this elite world where, people then thought a lot of you because you ran sub 10 and as a result that was your identity.
Absolutely right.
And if I was in that position, I would probably do the same to get myself and maintain my identity, because I did not want that to crumble, because that was me. That's what everyone saw as me. And I've seen it time and time again because kids are not given the right support at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely right. That's it in a nutshell. And I see it now with some of the youngsters now, not that they're contemplating those thoughts of taking performance enhancers, but yet they pride themselves on how many likes and stars or hearts they get on the socials. It's exactly the same addiction.
Yes.
It's the same.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same.
And it's getting worse, right?
Yeah.
It's getting worse.
I think.
Yeah, it's a challenge we have on our hands, but yet sport gives me an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, where their phones are down and they're free. And the more they're here, the more they get used to putting that down and just being outside, talking, having a laugh and throwing banter around. I'm all okay with that, because that then is the equivalent of what we used to do. We used to climb trees and kick bins down and all that stuff as a kid. They're now getting it in a controlled environment, but still allow them to express themselves.
And I think it's sort of brought the episode round full circle. So I think like the last thing I want to kind of touch on before we end this episode is something still sticking in my mind from right at the start. And that was how you feel, because of your experience in your career, the good and the bad, that you're in a really good place to be able to take these children under your wing and coach them. You're honest about all of your ups and downs, which is very admirable. The parents, you're able to say to them, look, I've been there, and not hiding behind anything. And I'm hoping that you're getting lots of kids coming to the academy. What's the plans for it? If you were to say, is it just to keep building that, or are you looking to achieve a certain thing?
So we've recently, over the past 2 years, we've been creating what's a simple word, it's called a portal. And within the portal, we've got several KPIs. And the most important part of those KPIs is we monitor how well these students take on board information. So it's simple things like, can the athlete or the young person take on board information and relate back to the coach? Can that young person take on board information, relate back to the coach, and then relate back to their peers? Can that young person take on board information, relate to the coach, their peers, and then go and demonstrate? So I challenge them mentally first before we look at how many press-ups they can do, how fast can they run the 100 meters, how far they can throw a ball.
So is the portal for the coach or the athlete?
They can see it too.
They can see it. So it's a joint kind of place where you can see everything happen. Yeah, okay.
And they've all got their own independence. So parents have access to it, the child has access to it, and so do we. And we sporadically monitor, and then they can see the steps that they're taking to then show that they're now going from the intermediate to the development to the advanced group. And that warrants how they then go up the ranks. And also parents can see their progress, because at the moment, over the past few earlier years, parents will just drop their kids here and go and do their shop, which is fine. But they don't know what their child's doing. And I want them to know what their child's doing here. I'm not just barking at them or giving them instructions. They can see this is what they've achieved today. So if that child wants to go into another group, we can then download that profile and they can go along with it and they can see their progress. But I'm always about challenging them up here first, because they can't get them in their mind. Anything instructional wise, physically, we're trying to get them to do, it's not going to happen. So that's where I then put those things in place. Again, coaching young people in a way I wish I was coached. So they're accountable for their actions and their steps. And I'm old school. I'm keeping them grounded. And in the 90s and 80s era, we do things, do the work, all because they look Insta and think, oh, if I jump out a window, I'm going to get instant fans. No, you're just making yourself look like an idiot. Do the work properly.
And I think this is great because you've got obviously the kids, like you say, for an hour and a half, their phones aren't with them. They're following the instructions of a coach. Hopefully the parents can see this, and the parents are staying as parents, because we don't want the parents to be the coaches. We want you to be the coach.
Oh yeah, we've had a few incidents where parents want to coach. I'm like, can you go back over there, or you join in?
I can imagine. And they're not going to mess with you because you're one of the fastest men on the planet.
Yeah.
We'll go with that.
I'm one of them. I'm one of them.
But I think that's the key thing. It's about, I think, looking after the development of the children, making sure that, everybody knows their role, but ultimately everyone's looking for the same thing for the child. And that is that they're enjoying their sport, they're engaging with it in the right way. And ultimately they're only doing it because they want to do it. So I think a massive credit to you, Dwain, for having such a successful career, managing the highs, managing the lows, and being where you are now and making a difference to all the kids that come into the academy. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been incredible. If you aren't already, then obviously go and check out what Dwain's doing on Instagram.
Definitely.
If you're listening to this because you are a bigger fan of Dwain than you are of Mini Athletics, then come and check Mini Athletics out, because we are all working for the same mission, and that's to get children into sport, get them enjoying that early doors. And it is great for the world of sport and athletics in particular. So thanks very much. And
thanks,
we'll
thank you guys.
Speak to you all on another episode very soon.
Absolutely.